Hello, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to this program brought to you once again by Kensington, Chelsea and Westminster Libraries. My name is Nina Risoli, and I have with me my colleague Lola to help produce the program tonight. It's with great pleasure that we welcome back our wonderful Roman envoy, Olga. Hello, Olga.
Hello, Nina. Hello, everyone.
Hi there. Just to tell you a little bit about Olga, she's a licensed tour guide of Rome and the Vatican City. She has managed tours in Italy, Central Europe, including Croatia, Bosnia, for over 30 years, and all the while working for one of the best US tour operators for luxury travel, TAUC, as coordinator and guide. She specializes in private tours for families and individual custom-made itineraries, so you know who to call when you get to Rome. A lover of art, she obtained her master's degree in art management at the American University of Rome recently, a couple of years back, and is fluent in several languages, including her TEFL certificate for English. So it's with great pleasure that we welcome you again, Olga, tonight. Just to say to everybody, you will be able to post questions in the Q&A. We have made a slight change in that you can comment on each other's comments or questions. So hopefully it will provide for a bit more interaction for you. After Olga finishes her presentation, we will look at your questions and try and answer as many of them as we can. So without further ado, hi, Olga, welcome.
Hello, Nina. And tonight we're going to talk about something that's a bit out of my usual themes about Rome, ancient Rome, Baroque, Renaissance, churches, Michelangelo's. We're going to talk about the artist, British artist. So that's I feel a little bit like, oh my God, what am I going to say about the artist that probably most of you know more about than I ever could, because, well, he's British. But I have kind of been, of course, introduced to Damien Hirst many, many years ago, like everyone else. And I remember many years ago, I actually ran into this. It was 2007. And I was walking on the streets of Milan and I see this skull and I said, what's that? So I buy it. And a few years later, I saw the skull in Florence. In 2010, it was exhibited in the Palazzo Vecchio. And I wasn't really prejudiced, it should be or shouldn't be, or well, the skull, the diamonds. And I really remember this wow effect that it had on me. And then in 2017, I was in Venice and went to see the exhibition, the famous treasures from the wreck of the Unbelievable, where Unbelievable stands for the name of the ship that allegedly wrecked in 2nd century sometime, like 2000 years ago. And the whole story was really impressive. I was only in Palazzo Grassi. I didn't go to Punta della Dogana. And I'm sorry I didn't take more pictures, but I do have a few that I will share with you. As you know, to these photographs, there's so many copyrights attached. So apart from just a few photographs for the introduction, I will only be using my photographs. And I really think I was lucky to be able to compare the exhibition by Damien Hirst in Venice, 2017, and the one in Rome. It was a blockbuster exhibition at the Gallery Borghese, of all places. You're looking at it here at the initial slide, at the thumbnail, and this gallery is one of the most beautiful showcases of art in Italy and then globally. I believe we had a presentation on the Gallery Borghese that you can still find on my site, that you will see at the end of the presentation. And I will not be talking much about the works of art that are contained in the gallery itself, but obviously about the sort of a juxtaposition that the works of art by Mr. Hirst created with what is already contained inside. So This exhibition was curated by Anna Coliva and Mario Codognato, the famous curators in Italy. And Mr. Codognato also curated the first exhibition that was dedicated by a museum, entirely solo exhibition to Mr. Hirst. That was in 2004 at the Archaeological Museum in Naples. It was a retrospective exhibition called Agony and Ecstasy, with 40 selected works. So now we have Mr. Hirst at the Gallery Borghese, and I'll start slowly walking you through the slides. So this is the gallery that is, of course, famous for ancient art, for the collection of the Cardinal Borghese, but also it's been about 15 years since 2007. There's been this collaboration with contemporary artists called Committenze Contemporanee, like contemporary commissions. And however, most of these artists were sort of not, I wouldn't say relegated, but their works of art were exhibited in the adjacent premises of the Gallery Borghese, very rarely inside. There was an exception. I'm talking about the living artists, Matt Collishaw, which is the, well, friend of Mr. Hirst. So Matt Collishaw had a spectacular exhibition in 2014. And these two artists, as you probably all know, started together as the part of that young British artist pack of 16 students who had this exhibition in disused warehouse in the London Docklands that was curated by Mr. Hirst. And they were and still are sort of known for their shock tactics. And they were noticed by the collector, Mr. Sacchi, and he started financing a lot of works by Mr. Hirst. So the rest is actually really history of art. And the career of Mr. Hirst has had its really ups and downs. And he always kind of managed to jump up again and come up with something really, really brilliant. So here we are at the Gallery Borghese, just wondering, what will this controversial artist bring into this gallery? How will that look like? He's known for those sharks and formaldehyde and the rotting cow heads and the flies and the death and violence and the medical cabinets and stuff like that. But well, stay with me, and we'll decide then, maybe together, if we like it. Now, this exhibition was many years in the making, actually 10 years in the making, and there's a whole story connected with it. So I mentioned the shipwreck of Apistos was the name in ancient Greek. That means unbelievable. A ship that, well, allegedly carried this cargo of about 460 tons of statues and works of art and coins and jewelry that were carried to a temple by this collector 2,000 years ago, who was a freed slave himself. His name was Cif, or Chief, we would say in Italian, CIF, Amotan, which is actually an anagram of I am fantasy. Now, if you go online and search for documentary called The Treasures of the Wreck of the Unbelievable, it was on Netflix in Italy, and now I found it actually on streaming some other site. Mr. Hirst made this, we call it mockumentary, because he's mocking us. He's mocking us, but so well that it's almost a pleasure. Not almost, it is. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And it is as if you were watching like a BBC or National Geographic documentary with like professors from the universities and divers and the scenes from pulling up these amazing works of art from under the water. So how is that going to work out here? Well, there was a lot of expectations about what's going to happen. Just to go briefly through just a couple of slides of what Mr. Hirst did or has been doing, because he still does a lot of these similar things. He's really good at re-elaborating what he already did. For example, in 1991, he did this shark in formaldehyde, not this one in particular, but the one called The Physical Impossibility of Death in the Mind of Someone Living. That was financed by Mr. Saatchi, and it became one of the most famous works of art ever, I would say, contemporary, definitely. And there was even a book written called 12 Million Stuffed Shark by Don Thompson. It seems that it was sold for 7 million. It costed 6,000, but it was sold for 7 million to an American collector, Mr. Stephen Cohen, and Mr. Hirst's pickled animals can reach really, really high prices. Like a sheep would be 2 million. And this is another one of these works. It's called A Death Denied, from 2008. Now, for the love of God, is the name of this skull, whether it's a real skull, or is it a platinum cast, or is it so many different sources, so I'm not going to go into that. It's, however, either is or is based on a skull from 18th century, and it's encrusted with 8,601 diamonds, 1,100 carats, and it costed 14 million, the most expensive contemporary piece of art ever, and it was sold for 50. So when we talk about money, it very frequently is mentioned along with Mr. Hirst's name, and he's jokingly he's got this anecdote when somebody asked him, "So why are you in art? You know, expecting some kind of a romantic answer?" And he said, "Money." And he said, "No, I'm joking. I'm joking." Well, he's got really penchant for money, probably, but also a great philosophy that money is not the key, but it does enable artists to do things and enables him to go forward and continues provoking and shocking us. Like, for example, I've chosen just the least shocking and obviously not copyright attached photographs, no cows, no dead cows. For example, the butterflies attached to the paper with the glue. He has famously also a big team of assistants. Is it 80? Is it 100? It probably depends on the project and fluctuates through the years. And he himself said, you know, I don't really hire very talented artists as assistants because, well, what do they do with me? But people who have basic knowledge, so they can help with technical things. And you will see when we walk through the gallery, there will be one of his spot cycles called Color Spaces, and it's really his assistants who put these dots and spots, and he's got several cycles with different concepts. Well, we'll mention that as we go. But of course, not just the assistants who put the little dots. You know, his work, especially in case of this exhibition, required a huge team of engineers and all kinds of technical knowledge was required, as you will see. One of his works, this again, the cow, with the flies, was seen by famous Francis Bacon, who was his idol. He adores, self-admittedly, Francis Bacon. And he must be very proud. He is. I've watched a lot of his YouTube interviews. And Mr. Bacon, 1 month before he died, he wrote about Mr. Hirst's work and how much he actually admired. So one of his dreams came true. He ended up here, where Francis Bacon was exhibited in 2009 in the exhibition, which I cannot say compared because there is no comparison, but let's say juxtaposed Caravaggio and Bacon. So how does this artist, who now even works with NFTs, these non-fungible tokens, he made this cycle with 10,000 NFTs, which he either sold as NFTs digital or the actual pieces. So the owners have to decide whether to keep one or the other. He did recently also the cover with pregnant emojis for the famous, globally famous Canadian rap crooner Drake for the cover of his album called Certified Lover Boy. So all these so modern things, so well progressive. He's ahead of his time, definitely. How will that
Olga,
see?
Olga, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
I am getting quite a lot of disturbance on your sound, which we didn't get before we started this. And a
Yes.
couple of people have also said that the sound is quite tinny. It's very difficult to make out what you're saying. Do you think it's possible for you to make any adjustments, or maybe try using, if you've got headphones with the...
I don't have headphones. Let me see if I get, I don't know, a little closer.
I'm sorry, but now that you're closer to the screen, it again sounds very good. It didn't...
Oh, okay, okay. So I'll remain attached to the screen if that helps.
I think this helps a lot. Let's try it like this.
Okay,
Because I
okay.
think when
And
you're sitting back in your chair, we get a
well,
lot of...
I was too comfortable then. I was feeling too comfortable.
I
Okay.
think if you're where you are now, it's much better.
Oh,
Okay,
good.
guys,
Oh, good.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay, I hope, well, it was an introduction, maybe all the things that you already know about Mr. Hirst. So I hope it won't happen, but please, Nina, feel free to obviously to interrupt me, and I will sit on the computer if necessary.
It sounds much better now, Olga.
Much better? Okay, okay, good, good. So let me continue. So we are trying to imagine, you know, will these ancient works of art be shocked? Like this is Daphne, you know, what is this strange artist doing in my gallery? And Paulina with her famous aplomb, Napoleon's sister. I'm showing you this room because in a couple of slides we'll pass on to the modern times and what Damien Hirst actually did, but just see these rooms without Mr. Hirst and then compare with what happened last year between June and November. So, well, is he going to win or is he going to lose? These are the mosaics which are in the Gallery Borghese on the floor of the entrance hall. So the question, when he organized this whole exhibition, the treasures from the wreck of the unbelievable, a lot of the newspapers were wondering, like New York Times asked, well, will he swim or drown? Because his career was kind of, you know, hanging on a thread. And he worked in silence for 10 years. And he came to Venice with that. So the salvagers, you know, the people who allegedly saved that whole cargo of incredible statues, they brought them to Venice. And this is one of the locations. There were two locations. And it is the first major solo exhibition dedicated to him after the one in Italy. After the one in Naples, he had altogether about 90 solo exhibitions so far and 300 collective ones. And the first time, the two famous venues in Venice, this is Punta della Dogana, this triangular building that was the customs office in Venice during the Venetian Republic, right next to the beautiful church of Santa Maria della Salute. And the second venue was this palazzo called Palazzo Grassi, that in the past was owned by the family Grassi, but later in more recent history, it was owned by the Agnelli, or Agnelli owned Fiat Group. You know, Mr. Agnelli was the owner of the Fiat company that produces cars. And they turned it into an art gallery. And when it was bought by Mr. Pinault, Francois Pinault in 2005, these 5,000 square meters were continued being an art gallery. And Mr. Pinault owns this company that deals with luxury goods. And now it's in the hands of his son, who's Francois-Henri Pinault. And all the Gucci and, you know, a lot of famous brands are owned by their company. And they're really avid collectors of contemporary art. So here you see 2017, again, unfortunately, I have very few photos that I took back then. So we get closer. Mr. Hirst already participated in an exhibition, inaugural group exhibition at the Palazzo Grassi in 2006, and then in another one, post-pop selection a year later. But now this is just him, you know, Punta della Dogana, the big triangular customs, old customs, and Palazzo Grassi. So he made 189 statues of bronze, Carrara marble, jade, malachite, aluminum, crystal, you name it. And in front of Palazzo Grassi, there is one of the two statues, of which one is Carrara, which was in front of Punta della Dogana, and this one is made of bronze. It's called The Fate of a Banished Man. Now, this exhibition saw 1,600 visitors a day. And smartly enough, it was contemporary at the same time with the Biennale, which attracts a lot of people. So a lot of them probably were there also just for Biennale. And then they said, okay, let's see Hirst as well. And then most of them remained with their jaws dropping as they were greeted by this demon with the bowl, 18 meters high statue. And all these legends, you know, one piece, bronze and all that. Well, I'll tell you the truth from what I could have found out. Yes, Mr. Hirst did cast the bronze versions, but this one is resin made in like 9 pieces that were glued together. It took about a month to mount it inside. And it was obviously a very difficult task. And it was painted to seem like to appear bronze. And it's very audacious, you know. Mr. Pinault invested a lot into that. And the total cost of the exhibition was $65 million, I believe. Now, always with these millions, sometimes can't remember is it dollars, euro, pound, but anyway, it was very expensive. Definitely not pounds because we are in Europe. And it was really non-conventional. And Mr. Pinault is really impressed by Mr. Hirst, obviously, since he invested so much. He says he's got like boundless energy. And what I also noticed during the interviews, striking presence of mind. So again, I won't go into his the past, his self-admitted excesses with drugs, alcohol and stuff. He's been clean for like 10 years. And I really haven't heard him while he talked about so many, I watched so many of the interviews, he doesn't repeat himself. It really is a striking presence of mind. And he came up with this wild artistic dream. It's really a colossal centerpiece, and it's the sort of an amalgamation of man and the beast. And the original was too heavy, the bronze one. But where is it now? It wasn't brought to, they didn't bring it to Rome, but I just found out recently that it ended up in Palms Casino Resort in Las Vegas. So Palms Casino Resort was restored for a staggering like $690 million. And the statue was placed in the middle of the pool outside. You can find these images online. Of course, they're copyrighted. And the price was really not revealed, but they say that when this was made, it was worth 14 million. I mean, Mr. Hirst is not poor. He's the richest artist in England, and he changed the history of the world of art when in 2008 he went solo for the auction in Sotheby's. Cutting out the middleman and selling 223 of his works for staggering 111 million pounds. So poor he's not. And he really seems to know what he's doing, but he's also taking a lot of risks. But anyway, I find it interesting, entertaining that in US, there is this casino resort that has the statue, and also they let Mr. Hirst work on the design of their suite, one of their suites, which from what I understand is like more than 2,000 square meters, something enormous with different rooms, you know, just great for parties, with sharks and formaldehyde, with butterflies, no cows, no flies, just butterflies. And a night costs $100,000, minimum 2 nights booking. So just as an information, it's called Empathy Suite. So it's like his art temple. But now, here we are at the exhibition inside the Palazzo Grassi. And at the wall, you can see the screen with that mockumentary that you can find online. and with one of the unicorns hidden under the barnacles and the brain corals and stuff that grew on top of these artifacts. And in front of us is Kerberos, or Cerberus, the three-headed dog from the underworld. And this one we're going to see in the Gallery Borghese. It's made of Carrara marble. And you can also see at the side of the statue that there are some like inscriptions. They are in, you see here, I'm pointing with the laser, in formal Coptic and Coptic so-called graffito. They're also Egyptian hieroglyphics, but they're on the other side. And I didn't think about taking those pictures. You know, so many things you could go and see these exhibitions many times, and then you would always say, "Oh, I forgot that." And by now, he's really making fun of us. He's kind of involving us into this story about the shipwreck and the statues, and huge works that, like the groups of statues that don't really make sense. Like, is this lapis lazuli at Palazzo Grassi? Well, no, it's painted bronze. And in one of his, again, interviews, Mr. Hirst says, you know, I just don't want the material to look like what it really is. Like when he was doing those huge they seem plastic, statues, the bodies with revealed organs, he didn't want plastic. He wanted bronze to look like plastic. So this is bronze that looks like lapis lazuli. And we'd say, okay, Greek mythology, that's Andromeda, you know, tied to a rock, and the Perseus is going to show up in a minute and free her from the sea monster. But who's that in the middle? Well, that's a shark. That's a gigantic shark rearing out, and it's actually a play on the movie Jaws, you know, from Spielberg movie. Now, this statue weighed 7 tons, and a structure had to be made to hold it not to damage the floors of Palazzo Grassi. Now, how do we know, is this true or is it not? Well, if you run into Goofy, made of bronze exquisitely, but covered with barnacles, well, you know that, yes, this is fantasy. And Chief Amoten, the slave who got rich and collected art and was carrying that ship cargo to a temple dedicated to Sun, it's all fantasy, but a brilliant one. For example, in this exhibition in Palazzo Grassi, there were also swords and jewelry and coinage. And on one of the swords, there was the stamp Sea World. Well, thank you, Mr. Hirst, for saying that. Now, as you come to the Gallery Borghese, again, between June and November last year, in the entrance, there are these statues in the portico that are named Lion Women of Azit Mayer or Major. Now, Mr. Hirst put together about at least like 12 mythologies and cultures after years of very careful research, him or his assistants. I don't really actually care, because when he was asked once, you know, while you use assistant, you don't do these things by yourself. He said, well, did Bernini do all the columns at the St. Peter's Square? He didn't. He famously had a huge bottega. And so did Raphael, a lot of assistants working for some famous artists. So, well, why not? And anyway, here we have recalling of an ancient tradition of pairing these divine female figures, mastering these predatory beasts. So being in the entranceway, they are meant to be like guardians to the gallery. Now inside, now I'll go little faster because there's so much to see, and I would like to show you some of the things I couldn't take good pictures of because they're like behind the glass because of the reflection. So I'll try to show you the best that I can out of 80 statues that were brought to Rome. So here we start with the Grecian nude. Mr. Hirst was frequently accused of plagiarism, but here not really. Well, you go back to classical and then you have your own version. But there is one female head where he was accused of cultural appropriation. Although he openly says what it is, you will see. Just stay tuned. We have small statues, big statues. They have all spent 2,000 years under the sea, and they're all encrusted with these, again, rain corals, barnacles, all kinds of seashells, again, painted bronze. And these huge skulls, they look kind of spooky. And he would make 3 versions of one piece of art. One as it was when he saved it from the sea, his divers. And the second one, the museum contemporary replica or copy, and one after the restoration. So there were 3. And not all of them are here, because out of 189, 80 pieces were exposed. And here is the one that was, it's like a contemporary replica. And these were like giant skulls, actually, of female mammoths, but they're known as the head of Cyclops, because probably ancient people, if they would run into something fossil or something, they created mythology around these unknown animal bones. But there are several of these cyclop heads in this amazing setting of the Gallery Borghese. Now, in the middle of this room with the Lanfranco ceiling above, there's this glass case that we will get back to. Just wanted to show you the shields and the swords that were here. He invented, again, oh, this is from Carthage, from the Punic Wars. In Venice, he had the shield of Achilles that was forged by Hephaestus, mentioned in Homer's Iliad. So a lot of research behind these pieces. These were made of powder-coated aluminum, silicon, stainless steel, bronze, glass. There's daggers, spearheads, shields, you name it, anything that an old civilization would have. And now that glass case that was in the middle of the room with the cyclop head, if these statues that look all gold are kind of bigger, so they're usually a combination of silver and gold. And this one recalls the Egyptian cult dedicated to the cats. You know, the Egyptians worshipped cats. And it has like a little opening on the chest, or it alludes to an opening where probably like a mummified body of a cat would have been. Like a chest is kind of large, and large leaves space for that, for an idea of that. And in the same glass case, there is this, well, if it looks familiar, it's like a robot from Transformers, from the movie. But Mr. Hirst calls this statue Huehueteotl. Now I'm not sure about the pronunciation, a Mesoamerican deity from pre-Columbian cultures, and Olmec dragon. Olmec were the first Mesoamerican civilization that faded by 400 BC. And this is silver and paint. Now, all of these pieces were made in a foundry north of London that Mr. Hirst collaborates with, and of course, a lot of engineers, scientists, assistants, all kinds of people that would make part of the team that comes up with that. Now here is some pairing of Chinese Buddha and the Jacopo Bassano, the Last Supper from the 1500s, or Buddha, of course, could be Indian as well. So made of jade, the material that was used in China a lot. In the past, very difficult to find bigger pieces in jade these days. So in a sort of a juxtaposition again with the Last Supper from the 16th century. And now something Egyptian. This is a lovely, lovely rock, and there's a little play here with saying, okay, this is Egyptian, but this is blue granite, which was not used by the Egyptians, and nor it was used by the Romans. This particular, sorry, this particular kind of blue granite, I think I found it's the Bahia that is quarried in Brazil. And it contains these minerals, sodalite, namely, or labradorite. And the bust that is named Unknown Pharaoh is made of blue granite, agate, and gold. But it's not really an unknown pharaoh. This is a portrait of a famous personality, Pharrell Williams, the famous musician and also a fashion icon. He designed a capsule for Chanel, and he walked the runway for an exhibition at Metropolitan Museum of Art. It was the Chanel Métier d'Art, which would be the crafts, and organized by Karl Lagerfeld, who was inspired by Pharrell Williams, and so was Damien Hirst. So this is actually the portrait of a famous personality. And in the same room, which is dedicated to Egypt, like Egyptomania before Napoleon, the times of the Cardinal Borghese and later generations of the Borghese family, we have Damien Hirst's contribution as a beautiful Tadu Keba. Did she exist? A wife of a pharaoh, 14th century BC, like a foreign princess, that would have probably been wearing a wig, or that's the idea that is implied. And this is painted bronze. So, okay, so another bust of Tadu Keba would also be bronze? No, it's Carrara marble. And see, he's playing with us. And these emeralds and rock crystal in the eyes, inlaid eyes, like ancient bronze statues would have inlaid eyes. Marble statues would normally have painted or little glass paste, but inlaid eyes like that would be part of the bronze statues in ancient Rome and Greece. But here the pupils are formed of natural carbon impurities that are contained within the stone. And again, playing with materials, if you look at this head of a sinner, that's how it's called. What would you say? It's made of, well, leather. There's a belt. No, it's black marble. And when I Googled Damien Hirst and the sinner, you know what popped up? My favorite, absolutely favorite, but I can't afford that stuff, Lalique. It's French brand that dates back to 1888. They're famous jewelry, glass, especially glass, perfume bottles, like a luxury brand, and absolutely amazing producers of glass vases. Some of their old ones, especially ones designed by the founder, René Lalique, they cost several thousand or whatever, and if not more, they're just really such rare pieces, but they continue producing. And Mr. Hirst designed a few things for them. One is called the Sinner, and it's absolutely incredible, huge piece of glass with this snake. So, well, that popped up. And I loved it. I must say I loved it. I want it. And it cost like about 50,000 something, doesn't really matter what. And now again, Egyptian, but don't we know this lady? Well, here the exhibition claims this is Aten. Would be like a single solar entity, the life giver, made of red marble, gray agate, and gold leaf. So far, so good. But you may recall being in UK for the 25th anniversary of the British GQ in 2013, Mr. Hirst designed the cover. And there was Rihanna, the beauty, in the shape, dressed as a Medusa with the snakes. And it just brought a lot of polemics, obviously. Oh, that's so, passe, Medusa here, Medusa there. But I don't know, she looked great to me. And anyway, this is Rihanna, ladies and gentlemen, Rihanna. And the motive of a Medusa is not only limited to the GQ cover. Well, we have 3 heads of Medusa. There was even one made of crystal in Palazzo Grassi, but it wasn't brought to Rome. here we have three heads. They're actually 3D reprises of the Caravaggio's Medusa that is in Florence in the Uffizi Gallery. So here is the usual one of bronze and painted bronze with these snakes coming out of the barnacles. And the famous one, which is, let me show you on the catalog of the exhibition. There it is. There you go, of course, it almost killed me. So there is a Medusa, it's really extraordinary. It's made of malachite. And the malachite, I learned that from Mr. Hirst, that when you work it, that the powder is poisonous. And of course, it's not poisonous if you wear it, but that working with malachite really requires a lot of skill, and people have to be very careful. This is a photo from Palazzo Grassi, one of the unfortunately very rare ones that I have from 5 years ago. And there's also this extraordinary piece, the silver and gold, and he uses gold a lot because people are so fascinated by gold. It's incorruptible, and if it remains under the sea, the coral won't grow on it, and people would kill for gold. So there's some intrinsic value in the metal as it is. So here is that extraordinary piece of Medusa of silver and gold, and he remains he remains attached a lot to the Greek and Roman mythology. Here is a lovely Bacchus in black granite. He's like always between sobriety and drunkenness. He's both human and divine and animalesque. He's masculine, feminine, a very modern personality. This little Bacchus god, or Dionysus for the Greeks and ancient Greeks. And he's shown as this abandonment of the sphere of reason, which we will see in other works as well. Here I brought you to a room with Bernini's David, and you see that there are two busts, one to the left, one to the right, the blue one, the green one. And who are they? Well, David is by Bernini, obviously, but the blue one, Neptune. Neptune, made of lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, which is one of the most expensive, absolutely, semi-precious stones. And also it still is pigment, extremely expensive pigment that you can still buy. There is a shop in Florence where you can buy pigment for the painters in like small jars because it's so expensive. And so there is lapis lazuli and white agate. And there is also another one, same, but of blue bronze, also overgrown with little sea things, corals, shells. But who is this really? Well, that's first the idol and then a friend, very close friend of Mr. Hirst, Mr. Koons, Jeff Koons. There's a lot of admiration between the two of them, and Mr. Koons impressed Mr. Hirst when he was young. Hirst is avid collector, and he collected the pieces made by Jeff Koons, starting from the Hoover vacuum cleaners, like ready-made stuff, ready-made art, to more recent pieces as soon as he could afford them. And he even curated an exhibition with only his own collection of Mr. Koons' works of art. And they sort of worked it out together. They curated the exhibition together. So here I wanted to show you again how this room, the hall, normally looks like before the intervention of Damien Hirst, the big entrance hall of Gallery Borghese, where you see first, I'm going to show you, well, the bronze diver, right? And this black statue, well, that's a Minotaur in black granite. And he's, well, having this sort of a relationship with the lady. We know that Greek and Roman mythology is full of sexual assaults of the divinities and nymphs and mortal women. And Minotaur is symbol of this unrestrained virility. And it's not only about the Greek mythology here. Those of you who are familiar with Jeff Koons' works, you may recall his ex-wife, Mrs. Ilona Staller, who was a porn star, and her nickname was Cicciolina. She was even a member of the Italian parliament for a while. And she still looks attention-grabbing, let's say. And Mr. Koons speaks very candidly about his ex-wife, because it was all about acceptance. And he did a lot of works of art that sold for a lot of money, representing him making love to his wife. So this is a very clear homage to Jeff Koons and his cycle that was at that time called, I think, Made in Heaven, like 27 pieces, I think lithographs, oil paintings, statues, glass, a lot of that. There are also photographs. And recently, in 2019, Jeff Koons sold the most expensive work sold by a living artist, The Rabbit, for $91 million. And here we'll also return to what Mr. Hirst thinks about that. When he was participating in an auction, and somebody said, well, you're a living artist, you can't really expect so much. What do you, would be all waiting for me to die? So what's this logic about a living artist, starving artist? And he's trying to overturn the rules. So he manages, why not? Why not? So, well, it could be a bit disturbing, but then let's jump to another thing that's also kind of disturbing. You know, Mr. Hirst is obsessed with death, melodies, violence, melodies in the sense of sickness. And he comes up with sometimes really, really interesting ideas. This is the foot of Apollo. Now, there are some gigantic statues in ancient Greek and Roman, actually Roman more, huge acrolite statues, like just the heads and the hands and the feet made of marble, the rest kind of faked to be the marble but covered with draperies, wooden structures. And this foot of Apollo is made of limestone. And what do we see on it? Well, it's a mouse, poor mouse. Now, Apollo was associated with plague. When he was angry, he would send either mice or he would launch arrows to infect people with the plague. So he was sometimes referred to as the Lord of Mice. But there is another connection here. This mouse is the so-called Vacanti mouse that was a lab mouse that had an ear grown on the back that was created by this gentleman, Dr. Vacanti. He is a researcher in tissue engineering, and you can find this online, like nude mouse Vacanti. And this cartilage was grown by seeding like cow cartilage cells implanted under the skin. That was to help people who mutilated and need to regrow cartilage. And this experiment was done at the Massachusetts General Hospital and Harvard Medical School. So these poor things are immunocompromised, so they do not reject transplants. So this is what inspired Mr. Hirst for Apollo with the mouse. And now this strange statue, in the middle of these classical statues, there's this gentleman that is actually Damien Hirst, but it's a self-portrait, but it is really Filippo Tommaso Marinetti. He was a founder of futurist movement, the Italian avant-garde in the early 1900s, and his body language was the inspiration to Mussolini. And Mr. Hirst was connected with the futurism, and there was an exhibition, The Future of the Futurism, where he was juxtaposed with Umberto Boccioni. So he's considered sort of an heir to a part of that futurist movement, which is really, really interesting. As a part of the exhibition, there was also a bust of Mr. Hirst, the same as this one, but overgrown with coral and barnacles, which it was not allowed to take a picture of. Probably the collector didn't want to, because consider that 70% of these pieces have already been sold, and for approximately 5 million a piece. And if the collector doesn't want the picture to be taken, then you can't. But you can find it online. And these seashells are absolutely stunning. They're made of bronze, would you say so? And this one is beautifully connecting. This museum specimen of giant clam shell is opening to the big hall with, we'll go to Kerber's hall, actually Hades. But look at this painted object. I mean, this is a seashell that's made of bronze. Just fantastic piece, actually. And in the room with the Rape of Proserpine and that Grecian nude that we saw earlier, there are also these Kerbers that were inspired by the original Kerber that we see here at the feet of Proserpine and Hades. So that's what inspired. Of course, you can always go back to our presentation on my site, always, just it's all for free, to learn more and remind yourselves of Bernini and the works at the gallery. But here are the Damien Hirst Kerbers. One made, the one that we saw in Venice with rubellite eyes, and the other one made of bronze. And kind of fit in quite well, strangely enough. And in the same room, on a much calmer note, there is this golden door, beautiful piece, also gold, golden leaves on the silver, some say bronze, depends on the catalog, with this geometric pattern as a basic unit, and the jewels, which are made of resin. So it's like either bronze or silver covered in golden leaves. And now, remember, we saw Daphne, like what would she say about these statues? There are some really extraordinary statues in the same room with Apollo and Daphne, made by Bernini. There are these children of a dead king, also covered, of course, with the same debris, aquatic debris, like other statues, and the version in black granite. So maybe like idealized pair of incarcerated children of the famed enemy of Rome, Mithridates of the 2nd, 1st century BC. And there is another similar couple, but different. This is a pair of slaves bound for execution. This is painted bronze. And as Bernini said, to imitate nature in marble, it may be necessary to put in it something that's not there. And I'm sure that Mr. Hirst read everything about Bernini. Bernini also said that art exists to ensure that everything is fake but looks real. Now, this statue is also represented in the catalog and was a part of obviously of the exhibition in Venice, with the photograph that was like sepia toned to look like it was from the war, Second World War. And it was allegedly used as a target for practice for the soldiers. So those would be the holes of the bullets. So is it true? Is it not? Sometimes it's lovely to just let your mind go and be seduced. So here we go. See how it looks like in the whole setting. And again, Mr. Hirst's art is communicating with what's already there. This is his female archer against Eros and Psyche on the ceiling. She looks really lovely. But talking about lovely ladies, here is a reclining woman in pink marble on a dining couch. And this is a Greco-Roman tradition. And they tell, some writers talked about these statues, they're so lifelike that they instill a love and lust. And here we see the artist who would be sort of in control of the nature, but those corals say, no, a brain coral that is called like that because it looks very brain-like. It has like, grooves and so sort of a cerebral shape, spheroid shape. It tells us no, because the coral can grow up to 6 feet and live up to 900 years, this particular kind of coral. And it's paired with Correggios Danae, see the position of the body. It's kind of relatively similar. We talked about Danae, obviously, during the presentation on the Gallery Borghese. And now we come to something else that this exhibition brought us, the so-called color spaces. That is a cycle that is the re-elaboration of spot paintings by Mr. Hirst that he made to look like as if they were machine made, while the color spaces bear traces of human imperfections, and later inspired his veiled paintings and more recently Cherry Blossom. But also his currency with NFTs is also about the dots. So he loves colors, never uses the same, and there are exhibitions. We'll talk also about the exhibition that he had with his famous spot paintings, just to show you a little bit more how it kind of communicates with Titian. Here it's a sort of, well, provocation, let's call it, Titian and Damien Hirst color spaces. The little ancient Roman boy is wondering what's going on in his little room. And there's a bit more of that. It's all over the gallery. You can see pairing of color spaces by Damien Hirst, and here Andrea del Sarto or other old masters, Fra Bartolomeo. They're all over the gallery. And this is a photograph of Mr. Hirst with his spot paintings that in 2012 were exhibited, 300 pieces in the Gagosian galleries in the locations all over the world, so 11. 300 pieces of, there was one that was like half an inch or 1 inch, something like that, with half a spot. And then there was the last one that he did with more than 25,000 spots. And somebody paid a lot of money for that. Well, you know, if he could come up with that and people pay, let them pay. So he's not going to starve anymore, ever. And so here, you know, he's juxtaposed with two beautiful Venuses, one by Cranach and one by Brescianino. More of the dots, actually color spaces. And now we come to the unicorns in the room with Raphael. So they do not really talk with the Entombment of Christ, which you can see on the right here, this big painting on the right, but they're actually communicating with this painting in the middle. I'm going to get closer. I'm pointing it now with the laser. That's the lady with the unicorn that was painted by Raphael, and it's paired here with these heads of the unicorn made of silver and bronze. There was one crystal one with agate in Palazzo Grassi, and there was also gold and silver, but here there are only these two. And unicorns, the mythological creatures, and we can see here at the painting, we see talking of the two unicorns between each other. The one on the painting, gentle maidens, they had the power to tame unicorns, so like woodland creatures, but actually probably narval tusks that were meant as the medieval people thought were unicorns. Now, talking about the Greek beauty, we have these Grecian nudes where we have to compare the seriality versus originality. And we have them in pink marble, and we have them in bronze. Paulina still thinks she's most beautiful. Why not? And these pink ones were made in China, again, of pink marble. And when a colleague pointed out, I didn't know that, obviously. I had to learn everything. I had to put my little hand behind and take a picture. He's mocking the whole art world, actually, the first and second market, all of them, however, with the buyer in mind. A starving artist is not his thing. So here is a little, you see how the serial number, and made in China. I couldn't go that far away because I would have broken, then my grandchildren would have been paying the debts if I broke one of these statues. So now hermaphrodite. In the room with the actual hermaphrodite that you will see, of course, ancient one. These beautiful creatures, sort of a third gender, were mentioned also in Plato's Symposium. And these are made of, again, bronze, black granite, bronze, museum copy, damaged, and the pre-restoration version. Together with, if you look here to the left, you see this beautiful creature. This is hermaphrodite from ancient Roman times. That is part of the collection of the Cardinal Borghese, the child of Aphrodite and Hermes, that merged with the beautiful, beautiful nymph. Now, we talked about the plagiarism, and I said I would mention the heads, Ife heads. He does mention, Mr. Hirst mentions, you know, this is Ife, and beautiful, beautiful art that comes from Africa, a lot from Nigeria, from Yoruba people, Edo people. There's a lot of stories now about Benin bronzes, of which a lot were returned. And one head very similar to this is at the British Museum. So they're mainly 12th, 13th century. So this one is again silver and gold, the other two are bronze. And here in the glass case, there are little pieces that look like ex-votos, and there's a little turtle, there's a little horse, there's a little corera headpiece, like from Ecuador. Again, the pre-Columbian era. And lovely, lovely little turtle. And Cupid's lie. There's that little Cupid with the wings. After he told us so many lies and made us fall in love with wrong people, there he is. He died. And he's made of gold, no coral growth, he's incorruptible, he's tiny. And in that same box, glass case, there is another little piece that I actually learned about, the importance of which I realized later. You see behind this sacrificial bowl, there is a little tiny monkey, and he's like either skeleton or actually real monkey, and he's called Sadness. And I read that Mr. Hirst says that it's his favorite. And now I have to call him. Listen, Damien, would you repeat the exhibition? Because I did not take a good picture of that little Sadness. I have to go back. Or he has to organize it somewhere else again. So I can find it online. It's not difficult. Now, to his famous statues of Hydra and Kali. Now, here in front of the Domenichino, there is a statue in silver. Hydra and Kali, the multiplicity of these limbs, it was typical for an Indian practice, but also the seven-headed beast is Greek, self-regenerating after you cut one of the heads, grows out again. So this movement, this intense movement, was also paired with this painting where Aeneas flees from Troy by Federico Barocci. So we are in the 1600s. It's a really intense Baroque painting, and it's all about the movement, both in Baroque and with Hydra and Kali. Now in this room, and we have about 10 more slides to go, so 1 hour and 5 minutes. So here with, again, Aeneas running away. You see, this is Aeneas by Bernini carrying his old father with his little son here. This is Bernini's showing with my little laser. This is Bernini's Naked Truth, revealing the truth about the bell towers, actually, of St. Peter's. We talked about that. And in the corner to the left, there is a small version of that demon. Remember the demon from Venice? It would be like a Babylonian king of the wind demons called Pazuzu. But, they say then on the label, not on this label, but general story, well, the head was found in Tigris Valley in 1932. Well, by now we know it's not true, but it's a great, great story. But they also say, well, he doesn't have wings, and he doesn't have the scorpion tail and snake-headed, well, penis. So it cannot be Pazuzu. Well, he might also be like an apotropaic or protecting, like household of somebody wealthy, holding this bowl. That actually, this is his take on William Blake's Ghost of the Fleet. You think of it in this position with the demon's bowl. A lot of ideas and references. And here there's a little statue communicating with Rubens. It's a tiny Mercury, the smallest of these treasures. He's a messenger between the realms of living and the dead. And at the Greenwich, the Tide, you had a chance. I'm not sure if it's still there, but Hydra and Kali by Mr. Hirst on the Tide, made again powder coated aluminum, printed polyester and acrylic light box, all kinds of materials. And we also had our gigantic Hydra and Kali at the Gallery Borghese, but outside, and right in those so-called secret gardens. It's really quite impressive. And this is not Mr. Hirst. This was an exhibition by Zhang and Li in 2019. It was part of those 10 actually exhibitions, the cycle of contemporary commissions, contemporary art that the Gallery Borghese has been introducing in the last 15 years quite frequently. But again, as I mentioned, of the living artist, we have these two young British artists, so Matt Collishaw and Damien Hirst, who had the chance to really exhibit their works of art inside the gallery, not just in the portico, in the Uccelliera. And there was Azedin Alaya, the fashion brand that had beautiful dresses inside as well. Daniele Puppi had the sound project. But I'd say that, well, young British artists, took Gallery Borghese by the storm. So we have to take them into consideration, not just as mind openers. We may like them or not like them. That's really individual. But the contemporary art has become a huge investment field. And the pre-pandemic art market, the reports say that sales on the global scale in 2018 were 67 billion. So maybe just something to think about and take Mr. Hirst seriously when he says money is not the key, but enables the artist to do what he wants to do. And to quit with that idea of the starving artist. No, if they're good, let them be rich. So, well, I brought you almost to the end. Just I have to attribute the photos which I used at the beginning, just a few that are not mine, you know, the skull and Mr. Hirst himself with spot paintings and the shark, the tide, and that's something that has to be done out of honesty, I would say. And if anyone has any questions about anything and you forgot to ask them now during the questions and answers time, I would always be happy to answer. Here's my site. You'll find an email, a contact, and also my past presentations recorded, most of them through the courtesy of Kensington and Chelsea Libraries and my dear friend Nina.
Olga, thank you so much, as always, a beautifully interesting presentation that did go beyond our time. So I will say thank you to everybody who has joined us. And if you have to leave now, we will understand. We do have a couple of questions, and I did want to ask you some myself. So if you can stay with us, just if you do have to go before you go, just to say Olga will be back with us in February for our Customs and Folklore Festival, presenting the Archaeology of Rome. I will send you some links to all of that, including Olga's website with the feedback. So don't worry about copying anything now, just to announce it. So if we can just go into a few of these questions. So Olga, this collection looks like an amalgamation of everything that ever happened in the history of the world. Is that the sense you got when you saw them? Because maybe just to recap, because the sound was so bad at the beginning, the whole thing, the exhibition in Venice and now the follow-on exhibition in Gallery Borghese, where have a strong backstory where Damien Hirst has pretended that he has found a ship that's been undersea for 2,000 years, containing the riches of a freed slave who made it in life and amalgamated a huge collection of very eclectic artworks from all over the world. And this ship sank, and Damien Hirst pretended that he's actually found this boat, and even had some divers, had some pictures of divers pretending to be taking these things out of the sea. And so everything that we've seen, there was a question here, is this antiques or is this Hirst, or what is this? So all of the pieces that you saw that Olga showed you were actually Damien Hirst interpreting what might be found on a ship like this. So basically Damien Hirst sold a lie. And did he sell it well to you, Olga?
Well, to me, honestly, he did. Here I am. I really went to see the exhibition in Venice first. Well, first the skull, like again, 15 years ago, I buy this Diamond Skull magazine and read the interview. And then 5 years ago, I go slightly prejudiced. Oh, it's marketing, it's publicity. It is, well, it's kind of, there is a void beneath the whole show, the dazzle. But you must accept, I must admit that yes, it's jaw-dropping. It's amazing how he mixed the fantasy with actual tradition. There's a lot of studying behind. I mean, he came out of Goldsmiths. He knows his things. His first the medical cabinets, the pharmacy, were also an homage to Duchamp, whose first ready-made was with medicines. So here he puts together, whether he or whoever for him, I don't personally care whoever for him, extremely profound research on so many civilizations. And then on top of that, also the modern, postmodern with Goofy, Mickey Mouse, Rihanna, and Pharrell Williams. So we enter into all that. It's beautiful. It's storytelling. It's storytelling, and that mockumentary is extremely realistic. I mean, you watch it, and every once in a while you say, "Is this real?" No. Then you remind yourself, no, it's not real. It's all invented. But all these professors, and it's perfectly made, and I really appreciate this effort. But no, all the statues, most of the people were wondering, looking, well, is this maybe original, or is this? No. None of it. It all came from his brain, from his factory, from his assistants, from this whole phenomenon that's called Damien Hirst, whether we like it or not.
It's a bit like the War of the Worlds with Orson Welles. Everybody's hoodwinked into believing that this is happening, because I heard before the Venice exhibition that it was all so secret, and then suddenly there were just some teasers put out of these people or the divers taking these artifacts out, so to generate the whole thing. I mean, that is the big thing, the big question about Damien Hirst and the whole of that posse is it all a clever marketing spoof, or is it real art with a big A, capital A? Where do you stand on that?
Where do I stand? You know what? I stand that if $1 from this, and you can go online and then find it's quite expensive, like all these good catalogs. If one small percentage of this goes to the Mr. Hirst's pocket, and he manages to entertain me in the future, may it happen. And what is art? It has been eluding definitions for millennia, whoever tried to ever define art. And when he was asked, what is art? He said something that's always, whatever he says is not safe for work. It was basically bleep, bleep, nose. So you can translate that into spoken language. So who knows? Is it supposed to be beautiful? Not always. It's not always the beautiful art that causes us to open up and feel. It's about emotions. It's about what we carry with us. This has inspired me. I don't know whether again, Mr. Hirst would appreciate the comparison, but I felt like when I read like Dan Brown. I'm not going to go into. I think it's bad literature. but because of the technique that he uses, he's getting better. But it was extremely entertaining. And I did tours, Angels and Demons. It was great. I mean, girl has to make a living, but at the same time, it was really, it inspired me to go, and for a lot of things that I either didn't know or forgot, to go and read what actually happened. So welcome, Mr. Dan Brown. Welcome, Mr. Hirst. You know, the world has changed. I mean, I love my Michelangelo, obviously, and Caravaggio, but we have changed. How could we go?
I love the analogy. I must say you hit the nail on the head with the analogy with Dan Brown, because in the world of art, that's how I see personally. And I must say, I'm not an art critic. I'm not an art connoisseur. I just go to galleries wherever I go, and I'm a kind of a consumer of art. But I find him very Dan Brownish in terms of this wow effect, and also the ability to adapt and take other people's work and turn it into something that becomes known as their own. Michael Bundy says, is art becoming just another money-making arena for rich investors then, or has it ever been thus? And I must admit, I was made to think of your other presentations, Olga, when we talked about Caravaggio and Michelangelo and Bernini. They were all chasing money as well, and people to support popes and kings and powerful people to support their art. And it was always about who got paid, who didn't get paid, how much, what cost, whose tomb, and all of that. So is it just continuing as it always has?
It always has. It's always been that an artist cannot survive without a sponsor, unless he's rich to start with. So the artist has to create, and he needs someone to sponsor him. Is it a politician, a pope, a gallerist? There's a huge field where you can invest into art, but you have to be savvy. You have to know your things. It's easy to say, I'll buy Leonardo da Vinci for 450 million. Who has that? This is the most expensive, I believe, work ever sold, the Salvator the Savior by Leonardo da Vinci. But investing into contemporary art is extremely tricky. What's going to be popular in 2 years? And yes, there is a lot of marketing, there is a lot of investment, but there's something we have to give credit to Mr. Hirst. When he went to this auction, somebody compared him to Nero, who was fiddling on the roof while Rome burned, because the same year, actually same day, Lehman Bank declared bankruptcy, and it was like a huge economical crisis, and it unfortunately continued. But he cut out the middleman. Like, I don't know if there's any galleries now who's going to shoot me, but frequently the artists don't get anything. It's the secondary market that makes money. And he's really the first one who's really struggling against this distinction. Why wouldn't a first market, why wouldn't artists make from what he made? But then if people like it, let them buy it. There's obviously, he's touching some chord with what he does. Because if he didn't, he wouldn't be around, whether we like it or not. No. And it's difficult, it's really difficult to say, are all these dots art, or is it just, okay, so this sells, so I'm gonna make dots this way or the other. A lot of money.
And it's really easy to do the dots. I must say the dots are, in my view, the dots are just not, especially juxtaposed to all those beautiful paintings. You think, who are you trying to kid, man? Maria,
I'm not crazy about the dots, but I envy him the idea. Okay, NFTs have been around. He didn't invent them, but to come up with the idea to make 10,000 little dotties and then sell them also as NFTs, and then you have to choose, and each one costs 2,000. I mean, these ideas, okay, it's marketing, but it's brilliant.
Maria wants to know, Maria Goretti, how many NFT works has Hirst made so far? Do you know?
Allora, he made 10,000 for this series called Currency. and those are already sold. It was in July last year, I believe, and then the moment came when people had to decide. There were these dots real on paper, all the catalogs and numbers and different names, and the NFTs. And then at a certain point, people had to decide, I'm going to keep this one or that one. If you keep NFT, we destroyed your physical support. And if you buy the physical, you have to destroy the NFTs. So he did that at 10,000. And they will probably appear on the secondary market for much more. But I don't think that there's still the law for the artist to earn when his works are sold through second or third auction. Probably not yet, from what I know. So he's not going to make anything on that. And then he made NFTs for Drake. He made those emojis, pregnant little emojis. They're all different. They're sort of ironic and iconic at the same time. And I believe he gave them as gifts to people who already owned his NFTs from the currency collection. I don't think he did other NFTs, not yet that I know.
Okay. There's somebody, I can't pronounce the name, has an interesting question. Says the photo of Hirst in front of big dots looks like he's posing with a Bridget Riley painting. Is he spoofing her work as well, like he did Kuhn's?
I'm not familiar with that name, so I cannot say.
Bridget Riley.
No, I'm not. I'm sorry. I'm not familiar with her work. But I know that I will look her up, definitely. But I know that the spots were already done by another artist whose name, her name is with L and last name with D. I'm not sure. There was another artist who did these spots before Damien Hirst. He was accused of plagiarism for a lot of things. And also for the sharks and formaldehyde. There was somebody who did them before. So he promotes a lot of, for example, his colleagues. He's very good friends with, for example, Matt Collishaw. And I think he's helped him a lot. He curated that first exhibition. I don't think there's a rivalry or jealousy between them, but I'm not sure. That's a question I don't know how to answer. That for that particular name, I'm not familiar with. I'm sorry.
Okay, the Bridget Riley, she is wonderful. No. And it is very strange that you haven't come across her. No. I'm sure you will delight in her work when you see it. Pat says a fascinating presentation, and a lot of other people, I must say as well. I was overwhelmed with the juxtaposition between the work of the artistic masters and the works of Damien Hirst. The mockumentary we can see on YouTube. What is the title to search for?
Allora, not on YouTube. It was on Italian Netflix, but I couldn't, when I went looking for it, if you go online, you will see, oh, it's on Netflix, it's on Netflix. It's not anymore. I Googled, it's called the Treasure from the Wreck of the Unbelievable. And just Google that, and I came up with this site that's called Documentary. I can send it to Nina where I found it.
And then I can pass it on.
Yes, I watched it in streaming, but it wasn't on Netflix, and it's not yet on YouTube. I think Netflix kind of has these contracts that expire after a while.
So something to look out for. Yeah. Linda Snyder says, Joseph Albert said, thus art is not an object, it is an experience. This exhibition is certainly that. It seems it's a lovely way to put it.
Yes, thank you.
Michael Bundy again says Seurat also has collections of dots.
Exactly, the pointillism, exactly. Hirst does mention Seurat, and other pointillist artists, yes.
And Emsa says dots are difficult. He has studied the colors. The composition is not easy. Remember, Impressionism in France, it isn't easy, and it's true.
It's true.
Linda again says, these dots adorn the boat that traveled between the museums, Tate to Tate in London. Oh, that sounds wonderful. I missed that. Even the antimacassars. I don't understand what this is. I nicked one, she said. Fascinating, Olga. Everybody's saying Yaoi Kusama. It has dots, dots. The lady who wears dots. Yeah, she's wonderful. This talk has made me see Damien Hirst's work through a totally different window, amazed at the research he put into his works and how utterly beautiful they are. On documentary mania, somebody says. So who actually made the sculptures? It's basically, Olga pointed out, many people, many organizations. Sometimes they were made in China, weren't they? Some of them even had
I think just the Grecian nudes were made in China, or maybe it's even mocking us, just putting made in China. I'm not sure, but I know that most of the works were made in this foundry. I think it's called Science Ltd, but don't take my word for it. And he collaborates with them. And in this catalog, there are also some of his drawings. So it reminds me of, again, Bernini, who, yes, the statues that you can see at the Gallery Borghese, he made by himself when he was young, but when he was older, he had a huge team, and then he would make a thing of clay and said, well, then he would give the marble to his assistants. So it works the same way, because no way he could. It's about a team now. I mean, in this kind of, if you work with installations and this kind of work, it's a lot about having a team behind you. Again, a lone artist, it's very, very difficult.
Okay, Olga, let's close with a question. Everybody's asking whether this will be available to view again. So we can say yes, it will be available on Olga's website. You will receive the links to where to go to reach this and other presentations she has made with us and with other organizations. Lots of them are wonderful. I'll send all of that with the feedback request following this event, so don't worry, you'll get all the relevant info. So Olga, the last question, let me find one amongst all of these. Congratulations. Is it possible to get the catalog of this show in English?
Oh yes, I found this. It's on Amazon.it. Just Google it. It's still available. It costs 70 euro, but I don't think it's only Amazon, Italian Amazon. It's you see, Treasures from the Wreck of the Unbelievable, Damien Hirst. There's a lot of his stuff on Amazon. He even did the coloring books. I mean, he's so prolific. I mean, really incredible. And if you want to buy it, I would say hurry up, because his books, his catalogs, once the time has passed and they're no longer printed, the prices start skyrocketing. So for now, I paid 70 euro, which was, it was costed 80, now it's 70, but more or less that has been the price. But you can find it. Treasures from the Wreck of the Unbelievable. Just go Damien Hirst, Palazzo Grassi, Venice exhibition, it will pop up.
Olga, thank you so much. Once again, you've given us everything you've got. Your presentations are so beautiful and one learns so much. I always enjoyed them. Thank you, everybody who's joined us. And do come again, especially look out for the Folklore and Customs Festival we had at the end of February, but there are some wonderful events before then. There's one brilliant one tomorrow about Hitchcock and his movies. So Olga, thank you, and good night from me. I'll let you say goodbye to everybody.
Goodbye, everybody, or should I say ciao, ciao from Rome. Ciao, everyone.
Ciao, and we look forward to hosting you again.
Thank you, Nina. I'll be
Good
back
night.
later. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Good night.
Bye.